There we go. Welcome to Sleep and Strategic Rest, which is part of the Wellculator program, which you may have been exposed to or gone online, whether you have or not. Our time together is here to inspire you in some way to feel more empowered around your ability to get a better night's rest and sleep. And if you are quite stressed in the day or feeling tired, to find ways to help your nervous system feel rejuvenated. Because as I said earlier, when we rest well, we live well. And when we don't get enough sleep, it can impact so many things. Now, what I'm going to encourage you today, because I'm going to go through quite a lot of content quite quickly, you can always come back to this recording, and I'm going to point to you at the end where you can find resources and you can access the Wellculator program online and listen to me talking through this topic again in a short video. So I wanted you to know that there are resources for you. And all I want you to think about at the end is, what is one small action that you can take for your lifestyle that can help you to either find more strategic rest during the day, if that's what you need, or to get a better night's sleep. And all this well-being stuff, as I mentioned while we were saying hello and introducing everyone, is about being a certain way. You know, we can read and have all the theory around sleep and well-being and wellness, but if we don't put it into practice, it's not going to help us. So as I said at the start, some of us, when we arrive, because of the technology shifting, changing, we might be feeling a bit stressed. And the one way that you can help your nervous system rest and also help your mental and emotional well-being is to slow down your breathing. So if it is comfortable for you to do so, I invite you to take a deep, maybe the deepest breath you've taken in all day. Breathing in through your nose, allowing the air to go right down into your belly. And as you exhale, give your shoulders permission to drop a little bit more towards the ground, maybe your jaw to relax, because we carry so much tension around the jaw and the neck that often can give us backache and headaches and things, especially if we spend a lot of time in our heads thinking. And, stress happens all the time. I think even when we're retired, I'm currently actually with my parents. My parents live in the Champagne region in France, and I was very surprised to see just how stressed my dad got today. So it doesn't matter where we are in our life, there's always things that potentially can feel, and that can increase fatigue and tiredness. And so it's important and useful to learn how to rest. A little bit about me. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I think it's important for those of you that are interested in who is this person who's speaking from France but doesn't sound French. And that's because I am South African born. My parents went to South Africa 55 years ago. They went there on honeymoon and ended up staying for a long time. I now live in the United Kingdom. If you know the geography, I'm just below Bristol. I mentioned that I'm from France. I'm a registered dietitian and a professional speaker on the topic of well-being in different scenarios, particularly the workplace. I really am passionate about this topic. So I keep up with a lot of accreditations and things, but most importantly, I am passionate about the topic of sleep, because I personally went through a difficult transition in my life about 10 years ago. And I was given sleeping pills because I was not sleeping, and I got addicted to them. And I had to teach myself how to sleep without them. And that was a long process of helping myself change my sleep story. I'm a very light sleeper, so I often get woken up easily. So I've had to really use different techniques. And I'm going to share some of the things that have helped me. And if it can help you or a friend or a family member, amazing. Because it really is important for us to get enough rest. If you are interested in sleep and you enjoy TED Talks, I would highly recommend. This is Dr. Matt Walker, who has done a great TED Talk called Sleep is Your Superpower. He's written a really big book that if you read will probably put you to sleep at night. And he mentions why it's so important and what we know. And perhaps you can think of this to yourself. Have you experienced any of these things when you've had maybe a sleepless night or two or three, or maybe you're experiencing them now? Our memory can change a lot. I'm seeing that with my mom at the moment, which is concerning. So we're having to take some closer look at that. But I know when I don't get enough sleep, I struggle to concentrate, and my mood, I'm not at my best. It's easier for us to feel like not sure-footed. Our immunity goes down, our blood pressure can go up, it increases our risk overall for diabetes, it's easier to gain weight, your cortisol levels stay quite high. So when you're really stressed, it doesn't then come down. You can have a lower libido, an increased risk of heart disease. I mentioned the balance, and overall not getting enough sleep. So not having between 7 to 9 hours. That's generally what most of us need. Very few of us can actually get away with less than 7 hours of sleep a night. And it's a myth that the older we get, the less sleep we need. Sometimes it's often thought, oh, just because I'm a senior, that I don't need as much sleep. And that doesn't seem to be true based on the research. So I know that this presentation, if you're joining us live or watching the recording, there's a vast range of individuals watching, and no matter who we are, sleep is important. And I want to give a context for the whole picture, because when we talk about well-being, we can't just isolate one topic. You know, I'm very passionate about nutrition, for instance, because I'm a dietitian, and gut health. But I also know that you can't just eat well, you also need to move well, and you need to sleep well and breathe well. So the Wellculator, you might have seen it in the newsletters that come out once a month. You might have accessed some of the topics on the programs that you have access to. There's a special program just for the residents and then also for the SRG greater team. And the Wellculator looks at 10 areas that are really important for our wellness and well-being. And today we're going to take a look at Wellculator point number 3, number 6, and number 10. So it's around being more mindful, around sleep and strategic rest. And all of this is going to help you to reduce the impact of stress if that is something that's important to you. So I am currently in the Champagne region. And just yesterday, I was driving past some vines, and we're only just coming into the fall, right? So we're not yet in the winter. But in the winter, this is what the vines will look like close to where my parents live. And I don't know if you know this, but in the winter months, not just vines, but any trees, actually, it makes them stronger. So their roots have to grow down a bit lower to access water and nutrients. And because they have the time to rest, when the spring then comes, they're able to make a better harvest. So the quality of the grapes that they use in the winemaking is better, to being able to rest in the winter and deepen their roots. And so there's a really powerful story there, because a lot of us might feel that when we're sleeping and resting, we're wasting time or we're doing nothing. I know a lot of people say to me, I don't have time to sleep. I wish I could just get away with less sleep. But actually, it's making us stronger. It's making your roots, your immunity, your gut health, your mental health, your emotional regulation stronger. And when we look at nature, we get a lot of really powerful lessons. So winter is just one of the 4 seasons, right? And now what I'd like to do is guide us through a framework that really helped me, especially when I started struggling with my sleep about 10 years ago, as I mentioned. And what this framework does is it at the seasons, so spring, summer, the fall, and winter. And if you overlap the seasons into one day, what do I mean by spring? So when you wake up in the morning, maybe you have an alarm that goes off, or I don't know, the kids might wake you up, or maybe you wake up because of the birds or the light or your partner or by yourself. The moment you become conscious, that's when your spring starts. And then summer starts and takes over spring, when potentially, this is especially important for those of us that are still actively working, or if you're going to look at the news or social media, anything that might trigger you to feel stressed or upset or tight, because then you go into maybe what we call the stress response, fight or flight, for instance. Then that takes us into summer, which is our busy day, when we're busy doing the things we want to do, being at community gatherings, working, dealing with our daily responsibilities. And then towards the end of the day, just like now, we have in the Northern Hemisphere, the season of autumn or the fall, where the nights are getting longer, the days shorter, and the leaves are changing color. There's like a wind down, a slowing down, before we will get into the heart of winter. And the winter, in this case, is when you're in bed and you've got your head on the pillow and you want to fall asleep. It's like a form of hibernation for the next 7, 8, or 9 hours or longer, depending on how long you choose to sleep. Now, we know that the quality of your hibernation, the quality of your sleep, is determined not just by what you do 10 minutes or half an hour before getting into bed, but by how you start the beginning of your day. So I'd like us to think about your day as you wake up. What is your spring like? So remember what I mean by that. Are you waking up in the morning, and are you giving your nervous system, your brain, your mind, your body some time to wake up? Because a lot of us, we tend to maybe immediately reach for a stimulant like caffeine, or maybe immediately reach for our phones and devices, or immediately listen to the news. And then before we've actually had a chance to connect with ourselves, we can easily then read or see something. You know, you might see a message on your phone, or if you're working, check out an email or hear something on the news. And you woke up really rested. I'm sure you will agree that when you wake up in the morning, your nervous system is the calmest it's going to be the whole day. Because even if you've had a restless night and you've tossed and turned a bit, you've been horizontal, your eyes have been closed, you haven't been taking in lots of stimulant and making decisions. So your nervous system is calm. And we need to linger in that calm state for longer. And the longer we can, the more stressed we are. Of course, if you don't feel particularly stressed, then it doesn't matter if your springtime, your morning isn't that long. But if you are, then this is a good time to think about, wow, do I just pick up my phone and within 30 seconds, am I engaging with it? And could I maybe make that from 30 seconds to 5 minutes? You know, maybe go to the bathroom first, get a glass of water, and then look at my phone, you know, and that's a huge improvement already. Because when you wake up, you might be in a good mood. You look at your phone or you listen to the news or something comes into your space, and then it impacts the way that you react and respond to what's happening around you. You might get frustrated or angry, or you feel a certain heightened emotion. And without going too much in the neuroscience, but I find the neuroscience fascinating because the body is so intelligent. And, you know, just like when we're in the night sleeping, the sun doesn't just rise and go perpendicular above the horizon straight away. You know, it rises slowly, slowly, slowly. So there's this gradual incline, and our brains, our minds, our bodies, our nervous systems work well, best when there's a gradual awakening. So we can move, and that's called the circadian rhythm. You know, from sleep, the brain waves are really slow. They're in what we call REM sleep, theta, delta. And then as you start to wake up, they start to speed up, speed up, speed up. But if you look at your phone or listen to the news or potentially get stressed too quickly, then they go straight into high alert. And why is this important? Well, I guess it's important if you would like to keep your brain and your mind as healthy and as possible and least impacted by stress as possible. So if you can keep your brain waves more in the creative space, not too super alert, that can be helpful for creative thinking and problem solving. And according to the neuroscientists and researchers that I'm reading, it helps us, you know, when you come up with a solution in the shower, when you're walking the dog or just staring out the window, sipping on a cup of tea, that's because you were in alpha brainwave. So you were able to creatively think. So I guess what I'm asking you is, could you make your spring a little bit longer in the morning so that your body gradually wakes up instead of jolting it awake with stimulants and devices and input? And even if you go from 30 seconds to 5 minutes, that's a great start. If you can go from 5 minutes to half an hour, even better. You know, do what you can and make it easy to stick to it so that you're more likely to stick to it. That's important. We're going to end with some behavior change stuff and pledges around how to create habits. The slide that I'm showing at the moment and this message is probably the most important that I can give you around sleep. If you are not trying this already and you struggle to fall asleep at night or sleep well, this is the one thing that turned my insomnia around. When you wake up in the morning, if you can see natural light, because the natural light goes through the retina of the eyes and there are photochemoreceptors behind the eyes and the brain, and that regulates the wakefulness cycle. So it makes you feel awake and it helps to regulate your melatonin cycle so that when you go to sleep at night, your body then feels drowsy. So this is a really important thing. And I know it's not always easy depending on where we live and what time of year, because it can be dark till really late and you might be already on your way to work. But as soon as you are able to, if you can spend 15 minutes getting natural light in through your eyes, that can really help. So doing that at the start of your day can help. And perhaps while you're getting in this light is to, I invite you, if you're comfortable to do so, is place a hand on the top of your chest where your heart is beating. And this heart is so much more than just a pump. It's deeply connected to the lungs that give us air. It's connected to the brain. There's wonderful research called heart-brain alignment, that when we take deep breaths, and if you allow yourself to think of something that you are grateful for, you shift your internal chemistry for the better. So maybe now, I don't know each of you personally. I'd love to. Maybe someday we'll get to meet. But I invite you to take one deep breath and think to yourself, what is one thing that in this moment you feel thankful or grateful for? Or is there something or someone that you care about that you can bring to mind? It could be a person or a pet or a place. And as you do that, your body is so intelligent, it will release oxytocin, which helps to lower your stress hormones, helps you feel a sense of belonging and trust. Thank you. Thank you if you did do that and try that. Because once again, well-being is about being and practicing, not just listening to things and, oh, okay. And I always say, don't listen to what I say. Try these things. Be curious about how they might work for you. And if they do, great. And if they don't, well, be curious about something else. So we know today that the world definitely could do with more happiness and joy. And the one way we can do this really quickly is like what we just did, is to take a moment or two and to think about what we're grateful for. Shawn Achor, the author of this book, The Happiness Advantage, is a Harvard lecturer, and he does a lot of research. And some of his latest research has shown that when we take 2 minutes to slowly breathe and think of things we are grateful for or something that we care about, bring up a really good positive emotion, we lower our cortisol levels, and we lower the cortisol levels of people around us. So if you've got a partner or a spouse or a friend or a colleague or a family member that is really stressed and agitated, sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you are that can help them the most. So by being still and calm yourself, your nervous system emits an electromagnetic field. It's a bit like Wi-Fi, and the people around you can feel it. I know you know what I mean. When somebody walks into the room and you know exactly that they're in a bad mood before they've said anything, because you can feel that vibe, right? The same as when somebody walks into a room and you can feel that they're happy, and those of us that have pets, we know that that works. I mean, cats and dogs respond to our moods so much. So if this is one thing you take from our time today, is pausing, taking deep breaths, adding in a bit of joy or care or gratitude or thankfulness is not woo-woo. There's real science to show that it can really help, and it can impact those around us. Because before you know it, we're going to be into our summer day, right? So some of us are working, some of us are not. But even if we're not working, our days are busy and we're buzzing around doing a whole range of things. And so we wake up in the morning with a full battery, and then our energy levels can drop. So some of you will be working behind screens a lot. So I thought I'd mention this. If you're like me and you spend a lot of time behind your screen, there's a guideline called 20-20-20, which means every 20 minutes, it's a good idea to look about 20 feet or 20 meters away from your screen for 20 seconds. So maybe now, if you've been behind your screens for a while, some of you are not that close to screens, but if you are, I encourage you to look away. Just look somewhere far into the distance if you can, or behind you if you're in front of a wall, and take a few, maybe 2-3 slow breaths, and then that will be 20 seconds. And then you come back and you carry on with the task. And that can help your eyes have a bit of a strategic rest. And then really important for those of us still working, if we can, to not sit for too long. I know some of us spend a lot of time sitting. Some of us don't, because we've got quite manual tasks and responsibilities at work. That's great. What's important then is what I'm about to share with you, is to keep your breathing and your posture as calm and aligned as you can. But ideally, we should stretch and move. So if you haven't had a break and you would like to, you have my full permission to stand up and stretch a bit. And then having a lunch break, if you're somebody who sits a lot, is also important. Ideally, not staring at a screen, because then we keep on looking down and we never give our eyes or our brain that sense of rest. I had the wonderful privilege of going to Japan last year. And the one thing when I went walking, because we went on I went with a famous poet, David White. I know he spends a lot of his time on the West Coast of America. And the expression that I heard a lot there from people that were very calm is the one that's on the screen. The most important things in our practice are our physical posture and breathing. So what I invite you to do is wherever you might be, seated in a chair, if it's safe for you, if you're watching this on a recording, even if you're in a car, please be safe. But I invite you to, how could you, as you inhale on your next in-breath, imagine that there's a string at the back of your spine, and I was just lifting it slightly. So you elevate your spine, almost like you were lifting your posture, but still stay comfortable. And then as you exhale, let your facial muscles soften and your jaw, oh gosh, I could feel, I carry a lot of tension in my jaw, and your shoulders drop towards the ground. So inhale, and I call this breathe in, strong back. Breathe out, soft front. Let's try it a couple of times together. So breathing in, strong back, because that helps you elongate your posture. Some of us tend to slump very easily, and then that compresses our lungs and we can't breathe. Sorry, I started speaking. Then breathe out, soft front. And even if you're like, I don't know how this works, it's okay. Starting to think about relaxing is the first step to relaxing. So last one, deep breath in, think strong back. So good posture, and then breathe out, soft front. And if you're interested in doing a posture alignment exercise with me, I'll share with you, it's on the Wellculator program, so you can access that under this module. And if in the evenings you are just not getting enough sleep, and you're not somebody who can power nap, because I know there are some power individuals that can take a power nap, which they sleep for like 20 minutes and then they wake up and it feels like they've had an energy drink or a double espresso. There is another technique. I don't know if you've come across this. It's called NSDR, non-sleep deep rest. It's a scientifically proven protocol that if you follow it, it's usually in the form of like a body scan where you move from your head to your toes or back again, and you relax different body parts. It has huge benefits. If you do 10 to 20 minutes of this, it's almost like you've had a power nap or some extra sleep. So I wanted to mention it so that you know that it is available. There's a lot of options that you can listen to for guided NSDR on all kinds of platforms, YouTube, different apps like Headspace, Calm. If you're curious, you can even, on the Wellculator program, there's a 9-minute recording that I did, because a few people have often said to me that my voice is quite soothing. So if we have time at the end of the session, perhaps we could do a little mini NSDR together, non-sleep deep rest. But I'd like you to know that this is available if you find that you just can't get the sleep that you need. Maybe you've got a baby at home. Maybe you've got some physical ailment or some condition that really makes it difficult for you, or a partner that maybe snores. That was the case for me. Then I come to this technique in the day when I can. I find a little window, I go to a quiet place. It helps me to sometimes put an eye mask on. I listen to a recording, and oh my gosh, I feel so invigorated after it. So now we're moving out of the summer season towards the transition, our evenings. And this is symbolic of the fall. So what is your evening like? Now, a lot of us, I think, regardless of whether we're working or not, we often have lots of screens around. So there's so much input coming in right through just life in general. And And if you are still on your screens, quite close to wanting to hibernate or go to sleep, that can make it very difficult. And even if you fall asleep quickly, it's possible that you're not getting that deep, deep rest that you need. And there's a variety of reasons for this. One of them is that the light emitted off many of these devices is blue, and we work better with red light, which is why last week I was working in Scotland, and I had the wonderful opportunity to stay in a place that had a fire pit. And the 2 evenings that I was there, I sat around a fire. And that orange, I'm sure you've had the experience sometime in your life to look into a fire. And it's hypnotizing, right? And it's relaxing. And that's what we actually need. We need red, orange colors as opposed to blue or white light. And I'm going to share some things that you can do in your home, if you haven't thought of this, to help, for instance, with the correct lighting. But winding down takes a lot of courage. For those of us that are stressed and we do a lot of work, or maybe we really enjoy social media, we need very powerful boundaries to say, I'm exhausted, or, being on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, 45 minutes can just fly by, and it can really activate the nervous system. So saying that you're going to stop and take a few deep breaths, or maybe listen to a relaxing non-sleep deep rest guided visualization, and doing that, I'm not saying this is easy, but it's something we need to consider if we want to have better sleep at night. So when we get into bed, put our head on the pillow, we're able to feel like a great big bear or an animal going to hibernate for the next 7 or 8 hours. So a few things that can help specifically around this concept of hibernation is, I call this how to set yourself up for success around sleep. And I'm now going to work through 5 senses. So sight, hearing, your nose, so for breathing, taste, and touch and feeling. And I'm curious, which of the 5 are you curious about how it could help you? Because you can't do all 5, because that's not setting yourself up for success. That's trying to change too much. So I'd like you to think, okay, that's the one. I don't actually know a lot about that, or I know about that, I'm not doing it, because common knowledge isn't always common practice. That's why I do this work, because it's not easy. If it was, we would all be healthy and well and fit, and I would not even be here speaking to you. But I'm really glad that I am. Yeah, I really am. So the first sense that I thought I would touch on is the one of taste and the mouth. So what we eat and drink, specifically the few hours before going to sleep, is really important. So caffeine in most of us lasts a long time. In my body, it lasts about 12 hours. In most people, it can last up to 6 hours. So it's a good idea, if you enjoy coffee, to stop having caffeinated coffee at least by midday. And alcohol, we have that expression about, oh, I'll just have a nightcap to put me to sleep. Some people, if you've got an active, what we call phase 2 detoxification in your liver, and you can tolerate alcohol, amazing. I'm not one of those people. So even one small glass of wine, I enjoy it. I'm French, right? I love wine and champagne. But if I have that at night, I can feel the impact on my sleep. So if I'm really stressed and I really need rest, I make an effort not to have alcohol then, and rather enjoy it if I can earlier in the day. There's some research to show that magnesium can help us sleep and rest, and other supplements like L-theanine, things like GABA or ashwagandha. But I would always speak to your doctor before you take any kind of supplement like this, because even though they're natural and I know they're really readily available, they're not always that regulated in the US and the UK, and I know in Europe the same. But there are natural remedies, like some people have chamomile tea or use lavender tea or lavender as a scent to help them relax. Also around the voice and the mouth, if you haven't tried this, is to hum. When we hum, we cause vibrations that help what you might have heard of the vagus nerve. And that's the nerve that's connected to the nervous system called the parasympathetic nervous system. It's the rest and digest. It helps us sleep. And so those of you that are putting babies to bed, we often hum to babies. We'll hold infants or children and we'll sing them lullabies. And that song, that vibration can help. So if you haven't tried humming, that can also help to release tension around the neck and the jaw. Maybe you could try that. Then the second sense is around sight. And I've already mentioned that. Often we have too many bright lights at night. Like we go and we brush our teeth in the bathroom right before we go to bed, and the bathroom light is often the brightest. So I change my bathroom light. I actually put a motion detector one on that's very low. So when I walk into the bathroom at night, I've got light, but it's not bright and blinding. And that has helped. And if it's safe for you and you enjoy it, maybe use candles. Switch off the big lights and you can even buy these special globes that emit a red light. And also resting your eyes. Like right now, I give you permission. You can hear my voice. You don't need to see anything on the screen for the next 10 seconds. Why don't you let your eyelids drop? And if you're comfortable to do so, let your eyes close. If it's safe, of course, because you might be listening to this while you're doing something else. And just notice how even though your eyes are closed, you can still see some light flickering off the back of your eyelids. There might be, some patterns, but there's a much more sense of darkness. And if you want to, for the next few seconds as we close off this exercise, put your hands, cup them above your eyes to make them really dark, like you've closed the shutters or pulled down the blackout blinds or curtains. And just notice how that feels to look into nothing. Yeah. That's why sometimes putting on an eye patch just for 10 minutes can be really soothing. All right. If your eyes are closed, gently open them and let the light back in. Wow. Just doing that, I noticed the stark difference. Yeah, I sometimes get headaches if I'm on my screen a lot. And so I'll take 5 minutes and I'll put on an eye patch and then slowly let the light back in and I feel better. This is what I mean by strategic rest. We're living through very stressful times, so we've got to get really creative and strategic around how we approach our well-being. And that's why I just thank you for being here. Thank you for being curious and interested. That's more than what a lot of people are around their wellness and well-being. And it's the most important thing because when you don't have your health, you can't really build wealth. You'll use up your wealth to buy back good health. So it's important for all of us across our whole lifespan. So I really celebrate you for being here. Right, let's move on to the next sense, which is hearing. Our ears also take in lots of information. And once again, I don't know if any of you use this, but if you listen to like classical music or healing frequencies, there's a lot that's available free of charge on like Spotify and SoundCloud and YouTube, where you can listen to things like binaural beats, which is where you have double frequencies coming in. You listen to those with headphones. And then what they do is they relax your brain waves from beta to slow alpha. And remember, I said that can help you relax and maybe help you to drop off to sleep. Sometimes also listening to nature sounds. If you don't have access to nature, you might be living in a busy place or a noisy apartment or house, where there might be lots of people in the house or TV going on because your partner wants to watch TV. So you could listen to rain, waves, birds chirping. Like we've got access to this technology that can actually help us rather than stress us. And like I mentioned, you can also listen to audio relaxation and meditations. And I think it's so worthwhile experimenting with different ones and seeing what works for you, what feels good for you. And you don't know if you don't try it, So try experiment with different types of music, maybe create a playlist that always relaxes you. And even if you take a break in the day and you say, I don't have time, but I'm feeling so stressed, I'm going to listen to one song. So you take 3 minutes or 4 minutes, however long the song is. Maybe even close your eyes as well. So now you've got your ears relaxing, you've got your eyes, can slow down your breathing. That might be just what you need, even if you can't get a lot of sleep. So the second last sense that we're going to look at is the sense around touch. So if you would like to, I encourage you to hold one of your hands and just gently give it some firm touch. Maybe just gently press on the palm, almost like you were giving your palm of your hand a little massage. Or if you want to, you can give your shoulders and your upper arm a bit of a squeeze. And touch is very important for us, especially if you're really stressed and tense and you hold your muscles tightly. When we cuddle with pets or people that we love and we feel safe with, we release oxytocin. And I told you about that. It makes you feel good. So if you are able to snuggle and get that kind of affection, amazing. Other things to think about is the temperature around your skin, so what you can feel. We sleep better in a cold environment. So I know in the UK, in the winter, a lot of homes are artificially heated and they can get quite stuffy. And it's a good idea to sleep where there's some fresh air in the room. So rather have lots of heavy blankets and a quilt and maybe a duvet, but keep the air as fresh as you can. And also how you feel in your bed. The pajamas that you choose to wear, if you do wear them. I know this might sound so obvious and maybe even silly, but often when I speak to people when they really need help around sleep, and I ask them, when was the last time you invested in new pajamas that you feel are incredibly soothing and soft on your skin? And often the response is, I've never thought about that. I either, I haven't changed my pajamas in ages, or I just sleep in flannel or whatever it might be. And also your sheets. Sometimes that little investment in buying new linen or new pajamas or your mattress, I know that's a big investment, but if it's really important to have the right firmness. And according to the chiropractors that I work with and the physiotherapists, we should be changing our mattress more often than most of us are. I know it's quite an investment, so we don't often think about that. You can also get mattress toppers. And by investing in where you sleep, that little step can really give you big ROI, return on investment, in terms of the quality of your sleep. So something to think about if you haven't thought about your bedroom, where you spend 8 hours every day, maybe more, a third of your life. It really is an important place to invest in. We often spend a lot of money on our kitchens or other, in the homes that we live in and the other things, but not often where we sleep. And then the last sense is the one related to your nose, because we've done taste and ears and eyes and feeling. So I've made you aware of your breathing already. So once again, I'd like to invite you, if you'd like to breathe in as deeply as you can. If you're able to breathe through your nose, great. When we breathe through our nose and out through our mouth, it makes it easier to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. But sometimes if you're struggling with sinuses or septum, that's not that great. It's not easy. So breathe in a way that you feel comfortable. What I'd like to encourage you to be curious about is different ways of breathing. So I don't know if anybody has come across box breathing. That's often used in high stressful, high pressured circumstances, like in the military, where you need to really regulate your nervous system and focus. And box breathing, I know they are sometimes teaching that even in schools when students are going for exams. It's where, for instance, you breathe in, say for 4 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold your breath for 4, 3, 2, 1. Breathe out, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then hold on the exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then you start again. So it's almost like you're going around in a square, because you're doing 4 in and hold, 4 out and hold. And you repeat that. And if you find 4 seconds is really easy, then you can move up to 5 seconds. Breathing in for 5, holding for 5, out for 5, and holding for 5. And you can increase that to 6, maybe 7, maybe 8 if you're a breathing guy. I actually, in the Wellculator video on this, in module 10, that's right. So this is module 6, sleep and strategic rest. Then module 10 is around regulating the stress response. And I take you through different breathing techniques. So if you're interested, you can always go there and practice with me for a minute or two. So we've covered quite a bit of ground. And what I'd like to ask you is, if you think specifically around the 5 senses that I've just shared, which of your 5 senses can you be more aware of that could maybe help you with better sleep? So could it be being more aware of what you eat and drink, maybe some supplements that you can take, maybe things you can do with your mouth, like humming, drinking a herbal tea at the same time every night. So you start anchoring that this is your time to wind down. Then are there things you can do around your sight, like softening the lights, maybe giving your eyes a break, either before you sleep or during the day even. Also then using sounds and music and different, nature sounds or different types of music or healing, relaxing frequencies. Have you given consideration to what your skin touches, like the temperature, the sheets, the pajamas? Often going for a bath or a shower, if you raise your body temperature right before you go to bed, so if you take a warm bath or a warm shower and then get into bed, that, according to Dr. Matt Walker, that TED Talk that I recommended, that can help you to also fall asleep quicker. So these were just about the senses. So maybe take a moment just to think about that. And I know that not everybody has somebody next to them, but if you want to take a few seconds and turn to somebody, hopefully you've said hello to them already, and just maybe tell them which of the 5 senses it is that you're going to, or you could think about being more curious about. And so you're welcome to share that. And before we went into the senses, can you remember what it is that we discussed? I spoke about the seasonal framework, which was spring, summer, the fall, and winter. And these senses specifically are related to the wind down, so the autumn season and then into winter. And if, by the way, you wake up in the middle of the night or early hours of the morning, because that happens often, and you can't get back to sleep, if you've practiced some of these breathing techniques and visualizations, or maybe you've practiced the non-sleep deep rest techniques, you are then more likely to default to them and use them. I always say to people, if you were, say, a professional athlete and you were training for long endurance events, you can't just go and run a competition or cycle or do some kind of sporting activity or match without the practice. And so when we practice in those moments, like even on a weekend, if you like, this is all too much, I'm so busy, I commute, it's crazy in the week. Maybe on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, you could take 10 or 15 minutes and jump online and find a piece of music and see how you feel if you listen to it, or relaxation, or a non-sleep deep rest guided meditation, and give it a try. And then when you do wake up in the middle of the night, you're able to then default and try some of the things that you've practiced. And remember, I also spoke about seeing natural light. Let me just show that slide again. Really important if you aren't doing this. It's as soon as you can in the morning, get some exposure of natural light, as opposed to immediately looking at your screens. And if you combine slow, deep breathing and a slow waking up with gratitude, you can change everything. And you can use this technique not just when you wake up in the morning, but also in the day. So right now, as we wrap up, and I'm going to share with you or ask you to think about, how will you make this time valuable by taking action? I'm feeling really grateful. I'm really thankful for the opportunity for technology to connect us across the oceans, bringing together all these communities. If you are watching this recording, isn't that incredible that we can actually have a recording? And just in that moment that I'm now thinking of what I'm grateful for, I can feel my energy lift and some of the tension almost melt. So it can be as easy as that, but it's only easy if we practice it. So I would like to now ask you, you've invested time to be here and energy to listen and your attention. What is something tiny, like an action or a habit that you feel you can take and put into action, maybe this afternoon, maybe this evening, or depending on when you listen to this recording? What could you do? Don't try and do more than one thing, because, getting up in the morning and not looking at your phone for half an hour, getting some bright lights from outside, and stopping your coffee at midday and taking a break from your desk and managing your posture and your breathing, and then winding down and doing all 5 senses. It's overwhelming. We can't do that. And so we set ourselves up for failure if we try and do too much. all the behavior science shows that we can instill new behaviors and habits when we repeat them. Consistency always wins over intensity. So what is something small that you could do based on our chats and our time together? And if you want to, you can always come back and watch the recording again. Or perhaps your one action is, you know what? I think I'm going to go and access the Wellculator program. Maybe you have or you haven't, because the Wellculator, like I mentioned, point number 6 is module 6 is around getting enough rest and sleep. So there's some resources there and a 7-minute video of me talking through some of the things I've spoken about today. And it's always good to have things repeated. I mean, I know that I learn best when I hear something more than once, for sure. There's also module 3, which has got some ideas around how to be more mindful. Because when we don't get enough sleep, we can often feel mindless or very restless. And then module number 10, which you have access to, we just haven't launched it because it's going to come around in the newsletters in December at the end of the year. But you can always go access that module, and it's all around how to regulate your stress response. So how to breathe deeply, use postural alignment, go out into nature, for instance, so that you can feel more rested. I know that perhaps Stacey or the Zest directors have a handout that can be circulated based on this workshop, this live session. So if you're curious about exploring the senses more, you can have access to that. And then there is, of course, you can always ask your Zest director if you need help on where do I go to access the Wellculator program. But there's one access point for residents and then another one for the greater SRG team. And on that note, with a few minutes to spare, I invite you for the last time. Perhaps let's combine a few of these techniques. If you're comfortable to do so, soften your gaze. So look down, maybe close your eyes. If you're comfortable, perhaps place your hand over your heart or bring your awareness or your attention to where your heart is beating, the center of your chest. And notice how when you breathe in and inhale, your chest rises. And when you exhale, it drops. And what would it be like if on your next inhale, you took in a little bit more air? So breathing more deeply, more oxygen into your system, activating more of your lung capacity. And think strong back. So lift your posture slightly to make sure that you're really aligned. And then as you exhale, breathe out, soft front. Let your forehead relax, your cheekbones, your jaw, your neck. Let your shoulders drop towards the ground. And in your own time, I invite you to take 2 more, the slowest, deepest, most nourishing breaths you've taken all day. One more. And can you bring something or someone that you're grateful for, thankful for, or that you care about? A person, a place, a pet, and just allow your feeling of love or care or gratitude to grow in your heart behind your hand as you think about them. Maybe let the corners of your mouth slightly lift up, just bringing a smile, and then gently let the light back in if your eyes are closed. And then from this place of strategic rest, I want to say thank you. Thank you for your attention, your presence, and for being here. Thank you to Stacey for the support and the quick agility when we had to change rooms. And I am available if you go onto the Wellculator program and you leave a comment or a question, it comes directly to me. And if that feels a bit too much, you can also, through the Zest directors, send me any questions or comments. Yeah, I'm here to serve and help. Well-being is only easier when we do it together. A rising tide lifts all boats. So thank you so much. I'm going to press pause on the recording, and then Stacey, I'll just come back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing this today. We really appreciate it.
Me too. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good
Enjoy the
day.
rest of your day. All right. Bye.
Bye.